Can you feel it, my friends? The review bomb is coming. Death Stranding is strange, to say the least. It is something I've been fighting with myself over ever since I booted it. And all I can say is, I have some serious quarrels with the game. On one hand, it's strangely one of the best games I've played in a while, but when I sit down and think about it, I can't help but be disappointed. Not any one idea within the game. Every part of the game is its own little bit of genius, but in the package as a whole, and the way it was presented. Death Stranding is like a jigsaw puzzle, built from pieces of other puzzles. It feels like a mashup of entirely different conceptual games, and while each of those pieces may be a gem in and of itself, if you take a step back and look at the puzzle as a whole, the overall image is a compiled mess. First, I want to say that I do not hate this game. It seems very often that this game is the subject of wildly divided views. Either people hate it or they love it, and there is seemingly no in between. However, I do not feel one way or the other about it in particular. There are parts of the game's design and story that I find incredibly good, and other parts that I find incredibly bad. Even so, this will probably come off as if I hate the game, because it will focus on what is bad about the game. The problem is that the bad will outweigh the good, in the same way that it does while playing the game. Because of this video will be pretty decisive. To anyone who enjoyed this game, I will say, don't bother. You're not going to change my mind, in the same way that this video probably won't change your mind. But I will say that you are entitled to your own opinion. As for myself, I didn't like it. There was way more to hate about this game than there was to like about it. But before we begin, I would like to ask for your support. Lately, I have been hard-pressed to find a reason to work on this channel, between school and work. And I could really simply use some direct feedback from you all to tell me that I should keep going. So please, if you wish to show your support, comment, like, subscribe, and share this video. It's really what keeps me going and keeps my confidence up in these times. And it's the best thing you can really do for me right now. In addition to this, this video may be rather long, so I'm actually going to break it into parts, probably 2 parts, maybe 3 parts, depending on how long it gets. They'll be in 10-minute segments, so please do go and watch those as well. That would be a great help, thank you. The gameplay of Death Stranding is probably one of the most controversial parts of the game. As such, I will be tackling it at first. And I will say, I'm not disillusioned with this game. If you took every fetch quest and filler mission from every other game in existence and packed them all together, you would be left with Death Stranding. By all rights, this game should not work. But somehow, it kinda does. The idea of a climbing simulator, specifically a mountain climbing simulator, is not lost on me either. If you threw me into a game and told me to climb Mount Everest with all of the problems and issues that come with it, I would be interested. That concept, in and of itself, much like most of this game, actually has some real potential. However, the entire game, placed under the frame of the story and the design at hand, just feels off. I believe the real problem here is that you're not exploring. You're not seeking new lands or paving new ground. Instead, you're given a point A to point B mission that quickly becomes monotonous, even when going to new areas of the map. You're basically given a choice every time you take a mission at a bunker. Do I want to make this easy, fast and boring, or difficult, annoying, and slightly more interesting. And while it is a sheer oddity to see Norman Reedus literally carrying the world on his back, the novelty of it wears away extremely quick, and you begin to feel like you are pressing forward in a vain attempt to learn something, anything about the story of the game. Because without compelling gameplay, the only thing you're there for is compelling story. Now, I know what you're asking here. Why is this guy carrying this much? It's kind of an experiment. I wanted to see what the game would do if I just went ham. If I just went straight God King UPS on it. And it rewards you. I won't make you watch the whole thing. Unfortunately, I had to play the whole thing step by step, but there's a point to be made here. The point is that this is the optimal gameplay experience. This is what the game wants you to do. It wants you to help people. All of what I'm carrying here is lost cargo from other players, from AI and such. And the game rewards you for playing that way. And there's two types of rewards in the game. There's monetary rewards, where they'll give you stars and levels and a different name for doing stuff. And then there's story rewards. And you don't get those story rewards playing this way. You get monetary rewards. You get, stars on your suit, which are pointless. You get a hat, which is pointless. But it's all exactly the same. You go up to the guy, and he's like, yeah, you did a good job. Cool. See you next time. And so you're basically pushed to the point where you're like, I don't want to help people. I don't want to do what the game is asking me to do in favor of getting through the game and doing story. So throughout the game, there's this selfishness versus humanitarian mindset that you're going through. And neither outcome is very good because it doesn't matter. No matter what, if you do what I'm doing here and you work yourself to the bone collecting other people's gear, at the end of the day, you're still going to be legendary. Even if you don't do that, if you just say, screw everybody else, I don't care, I'm going to play the story, you are still going to be referred to as the legendary porter, so it doesn't matter. I learned very early on that the like system and the star system and the name system, none of it matters. None of it. And I just decided, you know what? Fuck everybody else. I'm going to play through this story. I'm pushing forward. Fuck all that gear. Fuck it. I don't care. And so I pushed forward. From the opening of the game to about the 20% mark, you are assaulted with story development and character introductions. Only to have all of it stripped away for a good portion of the game thereafter. The story elements become further and further apart from one another as you play, until you begin to realize that this, yes, this, is the gameplay. And only this. After the opening, basically all characters are behind a screen or a communications device, constantly talking at you and trying to push you forward. And they aren't talking with your character, they're talking at your character.
Thank you, Sam.
Check the map on your cufflinks if you're lost, Sam.
Sam, this is Die Hardman.
Congratulations, Sam.
Sam, this is Die Hardman.
Sam. Breathe easy, Sam.
Sam, listen to me. Sam, listen to me. Sam, listen to me. Sam, listen to me. Sam, listen to me.
It calls into question why Kojima would ever even bring named actors like Conan into the game if they were going to be nothing more than checkpoints. However, after you push forward far enough, even that stops, and the true potential and the real issues of the gameplay actually begin to shine through. It only comes after you sit back, release your inhibitions, and just play. Just experience the world around you. You don't focus on building things or getting likes, stars, or gear. You just relax and enjoy. When the low roar kicks up, which, by the way, doesn't happen enough, and you take in the world around you, all of the game's problems wash away into nothingness. Unfortunately, all too quickly, they come rushing back to haunt you. Now, that is not to say that I did not have fun with the game from time to time, and that's why I'm so torn on the gameplay itself. The problem comes when you begin to realize that what you thought was artistic is actually just lazy design. For me, it came in around the 25th time I had seen the exact same scene of Norman lifting his gear in the exact same way with the exact same noises. The reuse of animations in Death Stranding is absolutely horrid, and you will soon find yourself skipping through every single cutscene as quickly as possible. Similarly, you will find yourself skipping through all of the context of deliveries as you begin to realize that 90% of the people you deliver to have absolutely nothing to say, and just opt to reuse the same voice lines to throw meaningless words at you in response to your accomplishment. The worst thing is, by far, that the game's progression only really serves to trivialize its own existence. The mules and the BTs, something that requires stealth and thought to get past at the beginning of the game, are rendered completely pointless after you get your hands on the equipment to deal with them. It all ends up in a monotonous grind that feels so disconnected from the actual story at hand that it feels less like gameplay and more like arbitrary checkboxes to qualify it as a game while you watch the story unfold. Kojima has been noted in the past saying that he disagrees with so many games being focused on combat, and that games don't have to have combat at their focus. And I, for one, agree completely. But there are examples upon examples of games not based on combat that are also not boring slogs through mindless missions and mind-boggling stories that take the worst mechanics of other games and compile them on top of each other in a vague attempt to create something meaningful. Minecraft, for example, a beautiful example of exploration and creativity in its prime. Steep, as another example, a fantastic showing of snowboarding and why people love it so much. Or games like Mass Effect, Stardew Valley, Portal, Amnesia: The Dark Descent, Limbo, Animal Crossing, Pathologic 2, the list goes on. I honestly believe that Kojima thinks he's done something revolutionary here in game design, but the reality is that's not true. The game still has combat, which is exceedingly odd because it's the type of game that feels like it shouldn't. It really makes me wonder if they wanted to make a game without combat completely, then decided people would find it boring and added it mid-development. But simply adding combat will not save a boring game. There are countless examples of this being the case. Good story and good mechanics will, with or without combat. And just because you have a character break the fourth wall and make mention of said combat does not mean we forget that. There's something to note about Kojima games that the reason they were so popular was not because you could understand the story, but because even if you couldn't, you could still enjoy the gameplay. You could not understand a single thing about Metal Gear Solid and still go into it and have fun because the game was fun. Same thing with Silent Hill. The problem is that just isn't here. Kojima's writing alone already pushes people away from his games, because as a general rule, audiences don't like watching something they don't understand. But when your gameplay is fun and inviting, that's okay. Death Stranding suffers from this immensely.